for joining us, the Wealthy Retailer Podcast with your host, Dan Holman. Every episode, Dan dives into the retail headlines that matter to you, the independent retailer, covering topics ranging from retailer inventory, technology, marketing, retailers' questions, and more. The Wealthy Retailer Podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. Learn more at retailbycrs.com. And now, here's Dan Holman.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wealthy Retailer Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Holman. Here we are recording for the week of April 15th already. I've got my sideman, Rob Walshar from Road 55, going to feed us some great headlines this morning. How you doing this morning, Rob?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, no complaints, man. I'm on the right side of the ground and the sun's shining. Golf courses are open.
It's definitely working its way to green out there. And, keeping busy, just working hard. Years and years of my goal to become an overnight success, just like everyone else, right? But some great headlines this week, as always. It's pretty broad strokes, but I'm curious to hear what you zoom in on a story talking about what every retail entrepreneur should know before launching their new retail business. And we love this, collaboration, partnership. It's a story about a department store and a boutique retailer coming together. Not the first of its kind, but just, another great example of community over self. And the bookstore folks, they're all binding together in again in that spirit of collaboration. So really looking forward to that story. And as always, a great retailer question. This one talking, we're getting into, cash and profit, and, the accountant says one thing, but
Dan says something different.
The bank account says another thing. And so looking forward to your thoughts there. So the first story, Dan, it comes to us from the retailtechinnovationhub.com and talking about all the things that every retailer entrepreneur should know before launching a business. They've got some great points here, Dan. What stood out to you?
Well, listen, this was a really great piece that was written, and it's not relative or relevant to just a newbie or a wanna retailer, if you will. This came from, I think, as you mentioned, Retail Technology Innovation Hub. And whether you're launching an e-commerce business or a brick and mortar store, there's a ton of work ahead of you. And if you want to have an opportunity for success, you've got to know these things along the way. This article goes on to say there is no foolproof blueprint that can guide you through each step of the process, as each sort of sector in retail, or vertical as we call them in retail, is different from the next. And most retailers, brand new or age old, will tell you that they're different. And I don't completely agree that there's not a blueprint out there. I think there are a ton of great resources out there to help someone build a good launch pad for their retail store. And so maybe there's not out there if you don't know where to look, but there's a lot of resources to help that wanna retailer be successful sort of out of the gate. So This article shares, I think it was 8 factors in writing a successful retail model. And I highlight these factors are not just for, the newbie,
day one,
the wannabe retailer, the wanna retailer, I call them. They're factors that all retailers, no matter their age, tenure, or affluence, should be paying attention to. So I took their factors and maybe threw my own little spin on some of this. So number 1 was good marketing can make a business. And I agree. In today's retail landscape, you have to be a good marketer, or better, be a great ambassador for your brand. Right. In my opinion, being a good marketer or a great ambassador starts and ends with the 3 C's. Content. You have to deliver a blend of who, why, and what. Who you are, why you exist in your space, and what you offer to your customer, to your client base. The other C is consistency. You've got to create a rhythm for sharing your message every day, every week, and every month. You've got to have this rhythmic movement of your of your marketing plan. And then customer is the last C for me. You must know who you're marketing to. She's not 14 to 94. You need to be laser focused on who you want to talk to. So when you're looking at your marketing plan, think of these 3 C's: content, consistency, and customer. Am I creating relevant content that tells a shared story of my who I am, my why I'm doing this, and my what am I offering? There's got to be this blend of different mediums in marketing today that consist of video and still and live and messaging and the quotes that resonate with you. Sharing that message is how you get your brand out there. I mean, this is how we create your brand awareness. You have to be good at marketing, or you have to be a great ambassador for your brand. Their number 2 was the point of recognition, that there's a lot of work that happens sort of behind the scenes. And being in retail is not all about selling products and interacting with customers. There's a ton of what we call back office work that happens in retail when you're not in front of her. Managing inventory, managing vendors, managing payables, finances, bookkeeping, scheduling, cleaning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a ton of work that happens behind the scene. And every wanna retailer has to recognize that 20% of my time is spent in front of her and 80% is spent working on or within my business in the background. Their number 3, communication is key. And many skills make up a good business owner. Communication is by far the most essential attribute that you have to have at your disposal. It's imperative that you find a way to communicate effectively in your store, in your workplace, whether that's liaising with a customer, a vendor, building a relationship with your employees. No matter what it is, you have to be a good communicator. People will only follow you if they know where they're going. Okay, number 4, road bumps are unavoidable.
Rob, you've been working until they get punched in the nose.
Yeah, you've been working every day, all day and night to become an overnight success. Well, this really speaks to that. If you believe the path to success is straightforward without any setbacks, dude, you're dead wrong. The road bumps themselves are not really the issues. And our path is riddled with this roller coaster of activity, this up. And in retail, we're pretty good at this. We wake up one morning, think, oh my God, I've got it figured out. I'm the greatest retailer in the world. And then the next day I wake up and think, how effing stupid can I really be?
Curled up in a ball,
crying into my Greyhound. I can't believe how much I suck. And that's the world of retail. It is up and down. And you have to believe that this pathway that you're on does have road bumps and setbacks. And recognizing, or the point of recognition, that those bumps in the road or setbacks aren't really the issues is important. You've got to recognize that there are real issues, identifying the real issues that are happening is a key factor in any business's success path. I'll give you an example. We talk to retailers every day that their issue is waning sales. Well, that's not the issue. I think we talked about it maybe on the last podcast. That's not really the problem. That's a result of a problem.
Right.
Waning sales is the result of maybe a lack of traffic, a lack of conversion, a lack of average sale, those factors that make that up. So recognizing your real issues is truly paramount in finding that pathway to success. Their number 5, technology is your best friend. And I like this because I do believe this. Your biggest competition, your biggest challenge, the thing you have the least of is time.
Yep.
And there's so much efficiency and time gained by using the right technologies in your business. You need to be open to learning from technology. And too many retailers shy away from tech because it scares the shit out of us. It's because we're scared of what we don't know, or that it might uncover something I should have known. And we've shied away from technology in lots of retail. I'm working with a client today who's had her first ever point of sale system, and it's her biggest bone of contention today, how much work it is and how painful it is. But that technology is going to help lead her path going forward and give her back time that she had spent doing things, in other ways. And so technology really is something that can help make a business successful. And having a good technology pathway or good technology partner to help steer and guide what the technology can do for me is an important piece of the puzzle.
100%.
Number 6, you need to bring in the right employees. We've said this often. We're going to say it again, Rob. Recruit, hire, and coach the people that have the right core values, those values, those guiding principles that are aligned with your own. But more importantly than that, or just as important as that, you have to hire and coach people that have skills that you lack in. Never try to replicate who you are. Always try to one-up yourself with every hire. Look for people that have skills and attributes that you lack. Number 7, you need a strong online presence. Hey, thanks for the tip here, Dick Tracy. You need a strong online presence. And that doesn't necessarily mean e-commerce, but it's more about being digital. Allowing people to see inside your store from your couch is important. Adding e-com will definitely expand your market reach. And in today's effed up world, it may be the only way your government is allowing you to do some business today. So, you do need to have an online presence. But let's go back and look at number 1 about being a great marketer. A great marketer knows I need to be where my customer is. And today, a lot of that time that customers spend dreaming and exploring happens on their devices at home.
And so we've talked before, Dan, too, about that the timely presence, accurate presence, from the address and hours and not just jump into that social side, but especially
it's not totally about social. And we have often erred on the side of becoming more active socially, because that's what we've been told people want to hear. That's not it at all. When you enter this digital space, it has to be a blend of social, but it also has to be a blend of where you're marketing and what time and to who. We talked about on one of the last podcasts, the power that Zulily has found with TikTok, Facebook, and
the 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. campaign.
The totally. 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. because that's when she's working. And we made a point of sharing that podcast or that segment of the podcast with a lot of our mom and baby stores, because it's important that they recognize, you're doing this good work. And whether you're doing it every Monday or every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you've got to make sure you're doing it at the right time. And this being online is about you having the ability to analyze, test the market, test times, test mediums, and be in the right place at the right time. Their last and most important number 8 tip was your business plan must be flexible. You've got to be prepared to accept, adjust, and adapt to follow this, bump-riddled world that you're in. I've seen too many young retailers come with the 80-page business plan that they believe is where they're headed, and the minute something goes sideways, they're lost. They're just lost. And that's coming from an inability to accept, adjust, and adapt. Accept the place that you're in, adjust your model a little bit, and adapt to a changing world, a world that changes every day. Your business model has to be adaptable, has to be modifiable. It's not set in stone. So really, this was a well-done article. We'll make sure there's a link in this week's newsletter. It's worth the read. And certainly if you want my notes on it, my take on it, we'll share that in our weekly newsletter as well.
Well, I really like how you let off too. Like it kind of reads for day 1, but honestly, it's gonna be day 5,000 too, right? And in the sporting world, you always look at, everyone has their game plan, right? They're going to start the game with their game plan.
Yeah.
But then you hear lots, you watch the TV, hear the announcers, they talk about like the mid-game adjustments and
Right.
that. And that's what makes great players is they're constantly,
Right.
they take that little break, right? Intermission is that break.
Right.
That let's go back, let's rework our plan a little bit and find what's working. But a great
and
list.
This is, Rob, part of the power that we talk about in taking a clarity break. That clarity break, that moment away from that moment, that 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, week, whatever time it is, allows you to refocus and adjust your game plan, to change the lineup, to change, your merchandise or your sales lineup, whatever it is. It allows you to be adaptable. And our retail entrepreneurial operating system really focuses on resetting yourself every 90 days to make sure you're accepting, adjusting, and adapting to the current market.
Yep, right on. Okay, well, hey, Dan, our next couple stories really steer into that world of collaboration and love that. This story coming from Vogue.com. Talking about big retail, Nordstroms and that. But I love, pulling out this one line. They talk about the days of retailers being territorial and fighting over exclusivity are over. And I like and just not at all interesting. And just really talks about collaboration, sharing space with, I like this line, with kindred spirits. Yeah. So what jumped out at you?
So this article from Vogue.com, we'll share a link to it again, highlights the Nordstroms collab with Dover Street Market. Dover Street Market is made up of 7 brands that are now being added to Nordstrom's LA, New York, and Vancouver stores. And this isn't the first department store boutique collab we've seen, but it's spun maybe in a different light than in the past. And Nordstrom's Vice President of Creative Projects, Olivia Kim, goes on to be quoted in this article saying, we want to support other retailers and other fashion brands just as much as we want our own retail to succeed. Dover Street has this incubator platform where they're supporting and creating viable businesses for young and emerging global fashion designers who all have their own compelling, interesting, and awesome messages. And Kim goes on to say, we want to support all of that at Nordstrom. And we don't just live in this bubble where, hey, we're Nordstrom and all this stuff has to come through us. We think about retail. I love this line. We think about retail as a place where a customer can come and feel emotionally connected to us because we're giving them compelling stories through a lot of different brands and other retailers. So the takeaway for the independent retailer in this message isn't the story, isn't the collab. It's that we think about retail as a place where a customer can come and feel emotionally connected to us. Holy cow, that is powerful. Now, let's not start thinking all kumbaya through this story. There's a tactical move here to gain and hold market share. And while the article does go on to say, as sort of you've highlighted, the days of retailers being territorial and fighting over exclusivity, are totally over, is bullshit. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Exclusivity's been over for a long, long time. But I do love the idea of a collab between a department store and a boutique. And I'm going to say, let's just, see where this goes.
Well, and we've talked a few times in the past too, Dan, where, taking it down to the smallest of independent boutiques, how the opportunity is there for them to find those little pop-up collaborations within their stores. And I'm a big fan when you talk about expanding their base too, where here's these other brands yelling through their channels to, hey, this is where we're going to be. And what a great opportunity to grow the audience that way. So,
and they're talking about this exclusivity is gone, and it's not really gone. I mean, exclusivity has been gone for a long time. Our vendors, they compete with us. Our distributors are selling to everyone. And still part of my mantra when I go and talk to a new vendor is, let's first talk about where else this is. Are you competing with me? my neighbor going to be competing with me? What's the MAP? What's the minimum advertised price policy? And does it apply to only me or does it apply to you? There's a lot of great conversation that comes from having that conversation with your vendor. But let's not mistake ourselves. Exclusivity is a very difficult thing to come by, which speaks to the power, Rob, of creating your own brand that is exclusive to you.
Right. Awesome.
This podcast is brought to you by Canadian Retail Solutions. We've been empowering retailers across North America for 30 years with the latest in point-of-sale technology, best-in-class support, merchandise intelligence with open-to-buy planning, and much more. CRS has the retail solution to help take your retail business to the next level of success. Visit retailbycrs.com to learn more. Remember, Canadian Retail Solutions exists to help make you, the independent retailer, better.
Okay, well, on the spirit of collaboration, let's continue. Let's head over to the old quillinquire.com, talking about our friends in the bookstore business, the Canadian Independent Booksellers Association. They're coming together to celebrate independent bookstores towards the end of the month. What'd you like in this story here, Dan?
I like the Quill Inquirer. And if you don't know what Quill Inquirer is, it's the magazine of the Canadian book trade. The print edition's published 10 times a year. It includes sort of author profiles and news about upcoming books and developments in the Canadian book industry, reviews of adult and children's titles. And the magazine reviews about 400 new titles every year. And it's probably the most comprehensive look at Canadian authored books available to us today. Last week, the news that the Canadian Independent Bookstore Day would be back or would relaunch with, prizes, discounts, some activity, some fanfare, some highlighting around, these 60 booksellers, bookstores, which really is this Canadian Independent Bookstore Day. It's Bookstore Day, April 24th.
Yep.
April 24th. And it's really just a celebration of independent bookstores that will have this public-facing campaign that launched, I believe, last Tuesday. So sort of a week ago, they launched this campaign for the build-up to the 24th, which launched on on the 6th it launched, where the Canadian Independent Book Day, is traditionally held on the last Saturday of April, to coincide with the U.S. Bookstore Day. Right. It was taken over by the Retail Council of Canada a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. And booksellers felt that the campaign got lost in sort of the organization's broader mandate, but now sort of boosted by the muscle behind Canadian Independent Bookstore Association. This year is going to have about 60 bookstores across Canada, 7 different publishers, really highlighting the success and the importance of those indie bookstores. And now, if we could just get some muscle behind other, verticals in retail to help continue pushing the message of how important or even how critical the existence, survival, and success of the indie business is to our communities and more importantly, our economy, man, wouldn't that be great? So I love this idea that there's an association that's saying, hey, it's book day, it's independent, bookstore day. And now we need independent ski day, independent hockey day, independent apparel day, independent, let's get some associations together to put some weight behind the power of indie business.
Throw a little creativity behind it. And like you said, could go right down to your small town of work with the chamber or on your own, find 5 other partners, come up with some.
Listen, I've long said, Rob, the biggest mistake that the chambers make is not promoting independent business on a day. I mean, we're cheaters. We piggyback off of, the US's shop local, shop Saturday bullshit, like all that stuff. There should be a campaign. The chamber should be focused on a campaign that publicly screams this message of it's Independent Store Day. And you choose the store. And the chamber has the wherewithal, every chamber in every community has the wherewithal to have, 12 of these days a year. And that's really what the chamber should be doing instead of
totally.
advocating for political bullshit that they're out there doing. Let's get out there and support our business.
We won't beat on our chamber friends too much here, Dan, but they deserve a little
Listen,
bit of
every past president knows the mistakes that Rob is a past president of the chamber here in St. Albert. No, and I certainly am not speaking just about my chamber. I'm speaking about chambers in general.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see, the chambers announced, it might have been last week or last month, I don't remember, but they did announce an alliance with digital retail to help any business get online and offer some grant money. So they are doing some good things. Don't take what I'm saying. It's more in jest than, an actual.
Well, I think of a couple things, Dan. I think of, our very first story, our very first point under marketing was finding that unique selling proposition.
Right.
And I think, to apply that to whatever your endeavor is as a collaboration coming together, that there's just got to be a little bit of a unique and quit. I think where they get caught sometimes is in the politics of trying to be all things to all people, members, and that. This story makes me think of throw my nerd hat on for a moment. It's like in the comic book industry, Free Comic Book Day, and that's coming up too. That's the first Saturday of May usually. Is it? And
connected to Comic-Con or
no? Just pure the comic book store industry, and lo and behold, it's built on, we're going to give you free products. So I'm sure that makes everyone quiver. But I've seen some of these in Edmonton here, and like it is by far like not even close. We're talking like 1,000 people coming through the doors of a small little independent comic book shop because they make an event out of it.
Yeah,
all on the theme of the Free Comic Book Day.
And Rob, listen, we've talked about customer acquisition costs in the past, and giving someone, a free comic book. I don't know how much a comic book is, $1.95, maybe, I don't know, $2, $3, whatever. But giving someone, that person, that follower, that real ambassador for the industry, giving them a free comic is significant to them, while it may be insignificant to you. Why do you think McDonald's gave away free coffee? Right?
Yeah, you go back to that.
Get people in the lineup.
Had no breakfast business at all, and then they started with that.
Right.
And now it's a staple.
Right, and that's part of us looking at, hey, listen, what's my current customer acquisition cost? Customer acquisition cost. How much money I spend marketing my business versus how many people walk through my door, or more importantly, how many people buy from me.
Yep.
Right, and doing that math and saying, hey, look, I'm spending $10 to get a sale every time. Is that the right number? Maybe, maybe not. But what if I gave someone, a free candle or a free, that it starts to generate this activity and promoting this.
Totally.
Yeah.
And on the comic book, just as a one last note, it is industry supported. So it's like the actual publishers themselves are giving the stores the free comics. Like they understand the value of maybe this is the first connection opportunity, that it's free sample day. And,
and listen, every vendor, no matter what vertical you're in, publisher or producer of goods, wants to get behind the promotion of their product and will happily give you things to do that.
Yep. So right on.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, that's your takeaway today. Just walk away and whether there's 3 or 4 of you or 100 of you, what can you do to seize the day, free comics or more? Okay, Dan, retailer question of the week. This is a good one. Tell us a bit about this.
Yeah, it is kind of a good one. So this came from Katie in Sherwood Park. She writes, good morning, Dan. On one of your older videos, you were talking about the different profits. I think you called it paper profit. Can you elaborate? Because I have my financials back from my accountant. And even though he told me we had a really good year in spite of the pandemic, I still don't have very much money to work with for my spring and summer buys that are starting to ship right now. Thank you always for being available to help. Katie. Good question, Katie. Awesome. Really good question. And while I said to Miss Katie, you're not really missing anything, I do talk a fair bit about the difference between what we call white paper profit and cash profit. Okay. And your accountant provides a financial statement built on the paper profit. This comes from the accrual method of accounting. And the biggest misleading factor or metric in accrual accounting is cost of goods sold. And your accountant, I'm going to stop for a second. This is not a slight or a slam on accountants. This is a principle of Canadian accounting. And I love accountants to death. They're the best history teachers ever created. But your accountant only measures the cost of what you have sold, not the cost of what you have bought. And in our world, we should always be measuring the cost of purchase because it has the biggest correlation to our cash position, our cash flow, and retraining our financial brains to think in terms of cash accounting is where the difference comes in. Building budgets in your store or creating a budget for your business based on revenue in and cash out, i.e. purchases, is imperative. And we use a break-even analysis that's foundationally based on the purchase volume to help a retailer get better understanding of their true position and projection in a business. Now, before I kind of go further, I'm going to go back a step and explain sort of the difference between what we see on your financial statement under cost of goods sold and what we should see is as cost of purchase. Cost of goods sold is a calculated number that measures only the cost of what you've sold. So when you sell a shirt to someone, accounting only picks up the cost of this one shirt, not the 20 shirts you bought, right? So cost of goods sold is really a calculated number. It starts with how much inventory you opened the year with, add how much you bought, take away how much you're left with, and that's what your cost of goods sold is, which then delivers a margin number. It takes revenue minus that cost of all the goods that you sold, and then leaves you with your gross margin dollars, which you operate your business or pay your expenses with. And this is where the biggest mistake comes in when we sit down and start to talk with retailers. They don't have any money because they've been coached all along to look at cost of goods sold instead of cost of goods purchased. And cost of goods sold means that your inventory is an asset, not a liability, right? Inventory for me is a liability. It's this perishable thing floating in your stockroom that represents cash tied up in your business. And as Katie sort of alluded to, her accountant's giving her the high five. You had a great year. You know, you're 13% net income before tax. Woo woo. Well, 13% before tax means, you know, if my tax rate's at 13%, I'm not making any freaking money. And she doesn't have any cash in the bank. It's because her cash is sitting in her purchases, right? Not in cost of goods sold. So we've got to really refocus ourselves, and using a break-even analysis that's foundationally based on purchases, not on cost of goods sold, is how we get retailers this better understanding of their true cash position, and more importantly, Rob, their cash projection. It's more important to know where you're going than where you've been.
Right.
Memories are a great thing, right?
Yeah.
The lust, the lure, that comes from where I'm headed, not where I've been. And understanding how your purchases impact your cash or your cash profit allows us to better plan your store. And so for Katie, we talked about, let's go ahead and run a break-even analysis on your store. Let's get you, we're going to use that financial statement that the accountant prepared. It's great. It's a great document. Both the income statement and the balance sheet tell us a lot about a business, but it doesn't tell us about their cash position necessarily. It's a historical look at what cash was, when your year ended on December 31st, but here we are rocking through the middle of April and you don't have any money. Yeah. Let's figure out why that is. So, we set up this break-even analysis for Katie that really allowed her to see exactly where her break-even point is every month, every quarter, every year, and more importantly, where her cash would be outside of, the taxes payable that her accountant might show her. And so for anybody that wants to take advantage of understanding that break-even analysis, head over to thewealthyretailer.com. There's more about break-even analysis and retail business analysis available over there.
Yep.
And, you know, inside of an hour, we can really give you a better, clearer understanding of not just, you know, where your cash is today, because like I said, it doesn't matter. What matters is where your cash is going to be tomorrow. And we've got to have a plan, you know, that protects cash, that fosters growth in the store. And part of that growth has to come from purchasing. So we've got to have a better handle on that. And so again, not a slight on accountants. They're doing a great job. They do what they do. They're the best history teachers in the world are accountants. But you really need to be managing your business from a cash position, not a profit position. So
my accountant told me there's 3 types of accountants, the smart ones and the dumb ones. And anyways, Dan, there's got to be other questions. This is such a great example of, I'm sure there's retailers that, you know, frustrating, struggling with, I'm hearing one story from one source set of professionals and source, and so great answer on that. And as you said, you've got more info on that. How do folks get a hold of you for any other questions that you might?
Listen, this was a question that kind of came from Katie not really referring back to a video from a couple of years ago where we did an example of, you know, white paper profit and cash profit, and remembering that, hey, wait a minute, there's different kinds of profit. And she sent that question through to Dan at thewealthyretailer.com. You know, we had a great chat. We did that break-even analysis that helped her better understand where she is today, but more importantly, where she's headed tomorrow, and what she does need to sell to be at break-even. And break-even is that place where, you know, we don't make or lose money. Important to know where that is. So yeah, any question, you know, I've said this before, Rob, no topic is off limits. You know, I'm like everybody, you know, I have an opinion about something, and I'm going to tell you that it's based on, you know, my own successes and failures as a retailer, but also on the best practices of the, you know, literally hundreds of retailers that we have the good fortune to work with.
You're at the core of so many conversations, the good, the bad, the indifferent, and like you say, get the value out of that for anyone.
And spending 30 years as a retailer has really allowed me, as I said, to find success and a lot of failure. And failure today is imminent for everyone. And failure is just a setback. It's just a roadblock that we overcome. You know, we only ever fail when we give up. Right. And so having lived through that in my retail life and vicariously living through it with this connected retail family that I'm in, you know, really does give me an objective, you know, perspective on a lot of these questions that come in. And I rely on, you know, there was a question that came from a retailer that I think we're going to do on the next podcast that I actually had to go and ask another retailer for the answer. Okay. You know, that I wasn't sure I was going to give this girl the best advice. So I went to one of my retailers and said, hey, I got this question in. What's your take on it? Yeah. And it turned out that we were somewhat aligned in our view, but that's the power of having this collaborative environment where you can reach out to more than one person. You know, I just end up being a gateway for information sometimes. I don't know it. There's a lot I don't know, man, in retail, and every day we're learning something. So
working it together.
If you've got a question, fire it off to Dan at thewealthyretailer.com. We'll get you an answer on the question, maybe highlight it on the podcast, and certainly highlight it in our weekly newsletter that you have to be subscribed to. We share all of the stories we talk about on the podcast, 3 or 4 stories that we don't talk about that we think are relevant to your world, and some other great information over at retailbycrs.com. Rob, what are some of those stories that we didn't talk about today that you want to highlight?
Yeah, we've got a few here. One, I like this, you know, a story about another digital brand, and, you know, they start digital, but what's next on their list? They're going brick and mortar. So away they go. And speaking of which, another story about the omni-channel age. We've talked lots about that, and this one zeroes in on it's expensive. It takes a lot of doing to cover all of those bits. I'm sure everyone knows that, but maybe reinforce some of the things that you're doing well, maybe you can improve upon. And story as well, you guessed it, but this one zeroes in on Canadians continue to with their e-commerce shopping habits post-pandemic. This one ain't going away. Omni-channel, all of this, it's all coming together. As Dan said, we'll have links to these stories plus all the ones we discussed today. Head to retailbycrs.com, sign up for the newsletter if you have. Awesome. And why don't you do a friend a big solid and convince them to sign up too? They'll be better for it.
Yeah, forward the newsletter to them, or just say, hey, listen to this jack off talk all an hour about his opinion. Yeah. Awesome. Hey, listen, thank you to everybody that does listen to our podcast. I'm very, very appreciative of the support and the comments that we get. If you have a comment about the podcast, we would love for you to, drop it in on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you listen to us. We thank you and hope that you have the best retail week yet.